So, as you can see by these paintings behind me, I'm not a big fan of the government. I see the government as kind of a decrepit old man losing his mind. And I also see the government as, well, whatever this painting's supposed to represent. Now, in my previous video, I got a lot of backlash for saying this, right? I said that if we tax the rich, the money will go to the government, and rather than them spending it wisely and making sure that the poor get and we create an equaler society, that money will actually end up back in the hands of the rich, and this cycle will continue. Now, I didn't explain myself very well, because that's a wild, sweeping statement, and it's kind of silly, and I agree. But let me explain it better now. When you pay tax, you expect the government to, spend it on you guys in some way or another, infrastructure, everything. But a lot of that money ends up in the hands of private companies. We all know this. This isn't new. This isn't silly. But let me just explain how bad it actually is, right? And I'm going to use the UK as an example, but you can look in your own country at this. Look at how your government spends money. It's going to be the same. So in the UK, we have a national healthcare system. Giant contracts go out to companies like GlaxoSmithKline, the vaccines, United Healthcare, even Palantir are getting involved in our NHS one way or another. Care systems for care homes for old people, that will be in the hands of giant companies like this. Housing for asylum seekers and homeless people, that would be Serco and BAE. They get involved in this. Infrastructure, even our railway systems, we spend billions. Like in the UK, we spend billions on this HS2 project for high-speed railway that never got finished. We spent billions and they cancelled it. They just didn't finish it because the cost was just going up and up and up, and it was pointless anyway. That money goes to companies like Kia. Food for schools and hospitals, Compass Group, school systems, I think, Capita manage that sort of stuff. Even our military, you would think the military spending, that's not going to go to private companies. No, that's one of the worst ones. That goes to companies like Lockheed Martin and so forth. A lot of the money in military goes to private companies. Even nuclear weapons. Now, this is the crazy one. Did you know that you would think nuclear weapons, something as important as that, there's no way that's in the hands of private companies, right? There's no way. Nope. Companies like BAE Systems and Babcock. Babcock's a funny name, but don't mess with them because they have nuclear weapons. Even nuclear weapons, private companies, and that's billions, by the way. The UK spend billions on this Trident project, BAE Systems and Babcock. The police contracts, a lot of these police contracts goes to companies like this, and it goes on and on and on. Palantir is kind of scary. They get involved in military intelligence within the UK. All of the UK spending goes to companies like this. And we know this, everyone knows this, but it still goes to the people, right? Okay, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. They own a percentage of all these companies. To a lesser extent, State Street, but mostly BlackRock and Vanguard. They own a percentage of all these companies. So in one way or another, your tax money ends up in the hands of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street in every country. Does that not scare you? That should scare you. Does this seem less crazy now? You tax the rich, government seems to spend it more on the rich, this cycle continues. Does that seem so crazy now? I don't know. Maybe it still does. Like I'm not against taxing the rich. I just say it doesn't answer the giant issue that we're facing. It gets worse. In your country, I can guarantee your country likely works with a giant consulting firm like PwC and Deloitte. I think there's the big four. Now, these consulting firms advise the government on how to spend money a lot of the time, right? But guess what? PwC and Deloitte also consult for these companies. Can you see that there's maybe a conflict of interest there? So PwC and Deloitte and these other companies, they work as a middleman between government and the other companies. They advise the government to use these companies while also working for these companies. Now, funny enough, PwC and Deloitte, they are not owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street. I think they almost have to be not owned by them in order to do this. But they work for both sides. And also, your government, I can guarantee, spends hundreds of millions on these consulting firms. So you're spending loads of money on consulting for the government, for them to spend more money on these. can you see that there's this giant issue that we're facing? So yeah, I don't think that this is such a crazy idea, actually. And also, I said that they spend it on their friends. I referred to these two as friends, the government and the rich as friends together. That might seem like a crazy sweeping statement as well. But like, I want you to look at every prime minister or president you had, or even most government officials, and see what they do once they leave office, or see what other companies they work with, right? You'll find that once they leave office, Obama, for example, works with BlackRock aligned companies. Keir Starmer, he had a whole mess up in our country with government spending. And then I forgot what the French guy's name is, and I forgot what the Canadian guy's name is, but you can just look into them yourself, and you can see that pretty much a large majority of your government is also aligned with companies like this or companies like this. In one way or another, there's a big whole thing going on, right? And it's kind of scary. And again, I previously said that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, they're not competitors. They all own a percentage of each other. It's like this huge fucking... Oh, actions, no swearing. It's this huge... it's this huge issue that people need to be aware of, I believe. Most of you were aware of this. I'm just preaching to the you know what this is. One of the issues in my previous video as well is I think people were calling me like a right-wing extreme, like a right-wing person. I don't know how that works. This is not a left or right thing. This is a horseshoe theory. Both the right and the left should agree that there's something not right about this. The fact that your money, your taxpayers' money, will end up in the hands of these companies. I don't know, maybe you disagree. But I think one of the main issues that I had with my previous video is I said that we should look at other options than taxing the rich. And I think I'm right on that. I think we should look at other options. There are other options available. Land reforms is one I suggest, but there are other options. Because taxing the rich continues this cycle in one way or another. So yeah, was that a good explanation?